Good evening, Eagles family. It's a wonderful Sunday night. Thought we'd get on here and talk a little bit about the running back situation. Hope everyone's having a wonderful evening. But this is something that's been a topic as of late. We saw that Carlos Hyde went to the Seahawks, so everybody's been talking about some names that are out there. So I thought I would bring on a special guest, a friend of mine, fellow writer from Fourth and John, Mal Davis, and I thought we'd break down the running back room that we actually have and also some of these free agents. But why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself first, Mal?
I just want to say what's up, everybody. It's Mal for the love of the game, Mal. Love for the game, Mal. And just excited today to talk about running backs. I apologize for the whole look, man. It's the quarantine look. Haven't seen a barber in forever, so I saw a gray hair popping out, and I was just like, "This, come on, man, I'm done." It's getting to me, but excited to talk Eagles. Excited to talk running backs, and as always, we appreciate you all tuning in.
Yeah, thanks, man, and definitely appreciate you coming on tonight. And I definitely looking a little haggard myself, so no need to apologize. We all know how things are going. Nobody can get to the barber. I've got some tails going on here and all kinds of good stuff going. But yeah, the running back situation, that's something that, oh, hold on. We got somebody bringing a little bit of knowledge already. Cowboys do indeed suck. So that's always breaking news that we can bring you to you guys. Down here at the bottom ticker, you can see we do know that the Cowboys indeed suck. But yeah, we hear a lot about this running back room. And people are, very questionable, obviously, because, they keep talking about Lesean McCoy, Devontae Freeman, Carlos Hyde. A lot of people were shook when he got signed by the Seahawks the other day. Well, reached an agreement, whatever, haven't really seen the numbers, whatever. I'm sure Corona is holding things back there. But, our running back room, what we actually have here, is actually something that I love and you love. We've talked about this. I've had you on a few times, but we've talked about what we actually have in-house here ourselves. So, I mean, you look at this room right here, even if we didn't bring any free agents in, this is quite the wonderful room. So, I mean, if you want, I thought, we could just sit here and talk about how awesome our running backs are. And if you want afterwards, we can talk about, some of these other guys that are available and could possibly, be coming to the Eagles, whatever, people's opinions are. We'll give ours and we'll go from there. But, this room right here to me, and, like I said, we've talked about this, man, had you on. These guys are all very talented. And with the talent we've added, around the roster, things are going to open up for this running back room. So if you want, you can open talking about Miles Sanders, coming into his second year. Quite phenomenal. So, yeah, lead us off. And why don't you think what you're going to see from someone like Miles Sanders? Because, I mean, we all got to see what, when we finally used the guy, because obviously us running the ball was quite an issue for quite some time last year. But, Miles Sanders is somebody that we're all pretty excited about. But I would love to hear your thoughts on Miles Sanders coming into his second year.
Yeah, so I, along with Eagles Twitter, I'm definitely pretty busy on like the fantasy football Twitter as well. And so had a couple exchanges around Miles Sanders in regards to like expectations for his upcoming season. And I continue to say that I believe he'll be an RB1, which means like he's really around like a 250 touch kind of guy. What I really love about him is that he doesn't need a ton of touches to be successful. He's somebody I feel as though is going to, again, getting that like 200 carries, 50 receptions kind of realm. I do think that he'll probably put up a little bit more in regards to like touchdowns for next year because he wasn't really utilized in that regard. We tried to get Howard going. And then when he went down with injury, it kind of left only Miles Sanders to kind of carry some of those reps. And so did a good job. I think that, honestly, he'll end up, in my opinion, he was able to put together 6 total touchdowns. I'm going to put him in that like 250 touches, probably close to around 1,500 yards, 10 TDs. I really see an excellent season coming from him. One thing that I really liked about Miles Sanders is you watch tape of him progressively throughout the season, is two things really sort of happened. First, he started to trust his offensive line more, so he was able to identify holes and really get downhill a lot quicker. And then secondarily, he was much more reliable as a pass protector, something he really struggled with early in the season. He just didn't seem that either he had the technique or he had the just experience in picking up rushers as you got later on into the season, where he was really tasked with a lot of those third down reps, picking up blitzers, identifying blitzers pre-snap, really stepping in and just using his technique well. He's not the biggest guy, and so he's never just going to like bull rush or steam folks over that are coming into the backfield, but he held his ground. He uses his body. He'll get his body in a way to give Carson some time to get the ball off. And so those are the things where I feel like, okay, Deuce and the offensive staff really trust him more. I think with some of the wrinkles potentially that we'll see from that San Francisco offense with more traditional runs, I'm a person I continue to say, and I will continue to say throughout the rest of this season, it's in the best interest of Carson Wentz to take less of that pressure off of him as a passer and put more of it on our running back group, sort of like what San Francisco does with Garoppolo. I think Jimmy G is successful because he's put in places where he can really pinpoint the rock. They use a lot of play action. To have play action be successful, you have to be able to run well, right? And so I think it really starts and finishes with Miles Sanders. He'll be somebody that I'm just excited to watch grow and develop. Saw him finally post a workout video this offseason. Dude's looking jacked up. He's looking ripped. He looks excited. And so, I'm at a point now where enough of kind of like the talk, I really want to see him put it together as a full package in year 2.
Yeah, definitely. And we all appreciate the talk, but we want to see the walk. Obviously, we're all pumped and we want to see these workout videos because everybody's stuck in the quarantine. So it's exciting to see him doing what he can. And you've heard what he said, he wants to come out, have an MVP type season. And I think he's going to come out and have a really big season because, we alluded to earlier in the video that we added weapons across the board, and we have one of the best offensive lines. We have the best tight end duo. So when you have that, you open things up for the running game. And, you talked about it, vice versa, opening up the passing game with our play action. We love all that stuff, the RPOs, all that good stuff. You can't establish that unless you establish the run. And that's one of the things people know about me. I can't yell it enough every damn week. Run the ball. So we finally started running the ball. Second half of the season, Miles looked good. He had his struggles, but he was a rookie, and we talked about those struggles early. But I'm also very, very excited to see what he does in this offense because I think, he could see up to 20 carries a game. We know that the Eagles love the running back by committee, and they will use that because, you'd be stupid not to use a rotation. You want to have fresh legs, and, that's how the Eagles roll. So as long as the guys behind him are doing their job, we'll get to them. I'm pretty pumped about what Miles Sanders himself is going to do. So, I agree with you. I think, he said about being the MVP. He definitely has a chance to because people are going to be so afraid of this offense when Carson Wentz starts opening up. They're going to see with these speedy receivers, man. We've talked about this. I've had you on a few times. It's quite exciting, I must say so. And then we can go to, the backups. Boston Scott. He's coming into his third year. He had quite the battle here. We talked about last year, him deserving a job, but then being passed up for, the likes of Darren Sproles, who gets hurt again, and then he's gone again. So some of us were pretty pissed about that. It happened, whatever. Luckily, the kid didn't get picked off our practice squad. So now we have him. He's going to compete. We had a small, 4-game sample there. So, I'll pop up his career stats here, but I mean, you take it all with a grain of salt. Everything is all from last year, really. So that 4-game sample. So I definitely like to hear your thoughts on what you saw and what you hope to see from Boston Scott coming into his third year.
And I mean, I think it made a lot of sense that the Eagles went with Darren Sproles because that's just the player that you know that he's someone that contributes in a ton of different ways and is super reliable, especially on third down, either as a blitz, as a person that's picking up the blitz or as a receiver out of the backfield. He still has some explosive runs too, considering how far along in his career he is, and the fact that his body started to break down over the past several seasons. I'm excited about Boston Scott. Like I said, I was on the fantasy football Twitter about 2 days ago, and the conversation was around the fact that the Eagles should not trust the group behind Miles Sanders. And that was the reason why everyone said that we were going to get a free agent running back. And I was completely honest. I trust Boston Scott. He showed a lot in that 4-game sample. If you take away that Dallas game, I mean, he ran really well. And something that surprised me is that he ran well between the tackles. Was he 5'7", 203, 5'7", 205? And so he's a short, compact guy that can run well behind his pads. He's not just like a one-trick pony. And he also can catch. So, you know, I think when you're looking at a Miles Sanders, when you're looking at a Boston Scott, even when you're looking at a Corey Clement, whenever they're in the game, is not necessarily predicting a specific action. When you have a Jordan Howard in the game, it's like, okay, they're probably not going to throw him the ball. They added some wrinkles for him, but in reality, you know, most of the times he was running between tackles. And so for me, when you're looking at that rotation of Miles Sanders and Boston Scott, I look at it like Miles Sanders doesn't have to carry the ball 20 times. I would love to see Sanders get 20 touches a game, but I don't think that he has to be a 20 carry guy because you have people behind him that can run between tackles. You know, we'll get into some of the free agent, undrafted free agents that we added in a little bit, but when you're looking at that 2 deep, I love that 2 deep. I think that it's a very dynamic group. You know, Miles Sanders clearly is the alpha dog, but Boston Scott showed more than enough to be that backup that could sub into the game in different situations, even potentially having Scott and also Sanders in the backfield at the same time. What do you do with that? If they are both running option routes out of the backfield, good luck to the linebacker, good luck to whoever's tasked with stopping them. God forbid you have some defensive end trying to kick out into space, he's going to get torched. And so, you know, I'm excited about Boston Scott. I want to see what he can provide with a year under his belt in this offense, and also the confidence of knowing that, like, he's most likely that second guy in command. If he wins that number 2 job out of training camp and is able to hold off Clement and some of the other guys that are on the roster behind him, you know, I think that the sky's the limit for him. You know, he can end up really being a consistent contributor for us in a lot of ways. I just love his catching ability. You know, he's somebody that really makes plays with the ball in his hand. Run after catch is really, really important in the NFL, especially in our type of offense where we're not necessarily always trying to take those deep bombs when the play breaks down and Carson has to kind of swing his eyes down to, you know, his checkoff receiver. And then somebody like Boston Scott, I have a lot of faith in A, he'll make the catch, and then B, he'll do something with it in space once he actually does pull it in. And so, you know, I think that he can, again, be someone that can take it up another level. You put Miles Sanders and Boston Scott together, I think that's a really underrated Batman and Robin kind of duo that the Eagles can do a lot with whenever they're looking at how they can implement them and leverage them versus other defenses.
Yeah, definitely. And I agree with a lot of what you said there. And, you know, I'd love to see Miles Sanders get 20 carries per game because, you know, obviously in my mind, that's, you know, where he's gotten in his, obviously in his mind. But I've seen, you know, a lot from him, and I think he could. But realistically, in the Eagles offense, you're looking at 15 to 17 carries per game probably.
Yeah.
You know, so, I mean, you want your backups to be able to do, you know, almost what these guys can do. And you said, you know, he can actually run through the tackles. He's a tough runner. He can catch the ball. When he gets the ball, you know, he does stuff in open space. So you love to see that. He reminds you of Sproles somewhat, you know, and you love to see that, obviously. But, you know, it's exciting to see him grow and get a chance. You know, he was on the practice squad for, you know, we took him from the Saints. So, Sproles again there. But, you know, I would really want to see him keep growing, you know, because he did prove a lot in 4 games. But, you know, he's got some competition now. So, you know, we'll jump to next, you know, someone who's also familiar with this offense coming into his 4th year. You know, obviously a few years ago, he was one of the Super Bowl heroes. You know, he had a great year, great rookie, undrafted kid, but, you know, he's been dealing with injuries, you know, so it's been rough for him, but we all, you know, most of us love him and we're hoping, you know, he does the best he can and he competes, but, you know, he's got some competition this year. So I'd love to get your thoughts on Corey Clement. So go right ahead.
Yeah, man. I mean, I think that Corey Clement, along with Nick Foles, will forever be close to the hearts of Eagles fans just because of that Super Bowl and that catch that he made in the back of the end zone, getting both of those feet in bounds and able to pull that in traffic. I'm forever going to be indebted to him for his contributions. Still, he's young, you know, 26 years old, I believe, 25, 26. And so even though he has had to fight through injuries, he is someone that still has a really long potential career ahead of him, hasn't even gotten into his athletic prime. I do think personally that Boston Scott can hold him off for that number 2 position. It's not like Corey Clement has just blown it out the water as a backup running back. he's definitely a rotational guy. But again, someone that can catch out of the backfield, can run between the tackles, and is familiar with the offense. Gail mentioned it in one of our videos not too long ago that he told his agent, like, listen, I just want to go to Philly. And so I love that commitment. I think that, again, when you look at Scott, Sanders, and then Clement, that 3 deep is good. They could potentially add a free agent, and I'm sure we'll talk through a couple of the folks that are available. I was potentially excited about Carlos Hyde coming to Philadelphia. I think he would have added a power dynamic that none of these running backs really have, a proven power dynamic, I should say, that none of these running backs really have. But I don't know that it was a necessity. I think that we're in a position where we can be choosy. We can be smart about who we add to this roster. It's not necessarily someone that absolutely has to come in because we're afraid that Miles Sanders can't do it. We know that Miles Sanders can do it. We know that in a short, small sample size, that Boston Scott can do it. And if either of them, God forbid, goes down, we know that Corey Clement can contribute as well and understands the offense and the scheme. So, those 3 I'm good with. Clement, to me, is not someone that I am doing backflips in regards to, like, oh my God, he's back, like he's going to be the difference maker. I don't think he needs to be the difference maker. I think he really just needs to be a glue guy. He'll contribute on special teams. He's someone that's just going to do anything he can to make this team, which is really important for that potential third running back.
Yeah, definitely. And, as you said, they all are kind of journeymen here. So they're all kind of have that fair battle here. So even the guys we've talked about here, other than Sanders, and then the guys we're going to talk about here, it's a fair fight, man. It doesn't matter what you've proven in the past. So, next up was an intriguing pickup, Elijah Holyfield, Evander Holyfield's son. We've talked about that. Oh, that's cool. But that means absolutely nothing when it comes to football.
Right.
So, it's all good and fun. But honestly, from what I've seen, I loved what I saw, from his tape at Georgia. But it's like that doesn't mean, once again, anything in the NFL. And we didn't get to see anything from him last year other than a few things at practice. Then we were really hoping that this off season, we'd see much. So the next guys, other than just him, we're going to talk about, we got to take everything with a grain of salt because, it's only college tape we've watched and, you can't really gauge much. So, but we'll still try to go with what we can here. But, Elijah Holyfield, very intriguing. We need a power back. He's one of those guys, big dude. So I'm very intrigued to hear what you have to say about Elijah Holyfield.
Definitely. And I mean, with Elijah, I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is that he really only had one productive year at Georgia as a junior, ran for 1,018 yards and 7 touchdowns, but was never really leveraged in the passing game. And so when you're looking at that potential power back, I think that it starts with him. It's going to be a competition with him and then also with Michael Warren around, like, who's going to end up being that big back for us if we don't add somebody in free agency. If we don't decide to go in that direction, I think between the two of these guys, they're not going to be tasked with doing too much. And they both showed on the college level that they were capable. Holyfield, for me, is like barely above that Jag level, that just another guy level. He's not somebody, again, that I'm like, man, I think he's a diamond or somebody that is going to end up really putting it all together. If he had more tape at Georgia, potentially, but the things that I did see him do, I wasn't overwhelmed by what I saw on tape. I'm excited about the fact that we do have 2 guys that could end up being that big back for us so that we don't have to spend, premium money that we could be using towards a 2021 free agent or resigning some of our own guys down the road. But for me, again, I'm not even sure he makes the team. If he doesn't put it all together in training camp, I think he'll have a really hard time holding off Michael Warren, who definitely showed a lot more in college and definitely showed to be a player that could rack it up in the red zone a bit more than Holyfield could. Now, if we were talking about boxing, then I'm like, okay, listen, man, that's a different conversation. But like you said, in regards to football, like that pedigree matters to a certain extent, but it really doesn't matter in the end of the day.
Definitely. And, Holyfield's a kid that, like you said, there wasn't much other than that one good year. And, if you watch tape, he has some nice power runs and, that'll intrigue you. But you also look at how much he didn't do in that time. So, like you said, you don't even know if he makes a team or if he's just someone that's sitting on the practice squad. So, he's an intriguing guy because we need that power back. So that's someone that is just, right now we're talking about, like we said, it's even, but it's going to be who's the 3rd, 4th running back. Obviously you talk about Sanders and, maybe someone does beat out Scott for the second, but just thinking right now, looking at things, he's the 2, and he's my 2 as well. But looking at things right now, that's where it stands. And, right now we're looking at 3, 4, and then who's the practice squad people, and Holyfield could definitely be that person. And, you mentioned him, so we'll just go right to him. But Michael Warren, he's a rookie. He spent 3 years at Cincinnati, and I've seen it listed anywhere from 5'9", 5'10", 5'11". He looks about 5'10" there, but he's like 225, and he's a bruiser. And man, this guy can actually catch. He can run. He's got touchdowns when he was at Cincinnati. Like, this dude had 1 touchdown his freshman year, and then the next year comes out with like 19, and then 17 the next, and that's his 3 years there. So it's like, damn, and that's somebody you and I and Gail, and we've had people on, we've talked about him. This is usually the name that when we talk about undrafted free agents, and not to say that we don't love Killings too, but, this is the first one we're going to hit up. But, man, I really like Michael Warren. I know you do too. So why don't you let these fans hear a little bit about, Michael Warren and what your thoughts are on him?
See, for me, I get a lot more excited when we start talking about Michael Warren, because I feel like he could be that diamond in the rough, was able to put up, like you see, over 2,900 rushing yards at Cincinnati. I just liked his approach towards the game. He was somebody that wasn't easy to take down. One of the first games I watched of his was against Ohio State in 2019. And Ohio State did an excellent job of just kind of taking him out the game. But Ohio State also had how many first-round picks on that defense, right? How many first-round picks will they have next year on that defense? And also, so I feel like when Ohio State focuses on you as the player they have to take away, it's sort of like the Patriots. They're going to take you away. It becomes around like, okay, who's the next person up? And so there was another back behind him that was able to put up some numbers because he was the focal point. But at no point in time in that Ohio State game that I feel like he was running scared. He was getting downhill. He was identifying holes. Those defenders were just closing those holes up, man, before he could really do anything about it. And so I feel like Michael Warren, I feel like Corey Clement should be worried about Michael Warren. Yeah. Honestly. For me, he's somebody that could really come in if he's toting the rock well in preseason, if he's looking strong in training camp, if he's gaining the trust of Deuce Staley and the offensive staff, and if he's able to pick up blitzes in the NFL like he was able to do at Cincinnati, Boston Scott might have to worry about Michael Warren. And so, I think that this is a place where we really start understanding the value of undrafted free agents and being able to find people that fit your system outside of that Ohio State game. He went crazy in 2019. I was sort of surprised that he identified for the draft as a junior and didn't decide to go back just because, again, running backs are so undervalued. And when you're a person that are coming out in a class that was relatively stacked at the running back position, wasn't all that surprised to see him slip and fall to where he did. But comes to a place where like his size is needed. The Eagles system has shown that they can realistically balance 3 running backs. Deuce Staley was a heck of a running back himself, and I was known for being able to coach running backs up. And so I'm excited for his future. I'm excited to see how the Eagles develop him. I feel like, Holyfield realistically could be on the outside looking in if Warren shows up the way that we all think that he can. And like you said, outside of his first year as a freshman, I mean, he exploded. I think it was at 34 total, more touchdowns over 2 seasons, and really was able to rack it up in the red zone in a way that none of the running backs on our team outside of Miles Sanders has been able to do at any level outside of high school maybe. And so really excited about him. I think that in the end of the day, when you're looking at where are we week 13, week 14, I think it's a real solid split between Sanders, Boston Scott, and Michael Warren at the end of the day.
Yeah, indeed. And yeah, like you mentioned, we are all very excited for him. The tape we've watched, the things we've seen. And, we once again, and you're going to get people that it's like, oh, well, you haven't seen anything. Exactly. We know. We're waiting to see him on the green before we make our final decisions. But right now, it's exciting from what you do see. And you mentioned Deuce Staley. Man, I love Deuce. Grew up. Obviously, you did too, watching Deuce. And Deuce was part of that committee. You had Westbrook there, Terrell Buckhalter. So that was something that
think about that rotation, right? So you mentioned that Westbrook, Staley, Buckhalter, like that 3-man group is tough. And I really believe that, you look at a Sanders, Scott, Warren rotation, like, damn, what do you do? Because Warren can sub in and, he can still catch. So it's not like, okay, he's completely coming downhill. Like, no, you can run screens to him. You can run him out of the backfield. You can run that play action, give it to him on the backside. And, you know, I feel sorry for whatever cornerback or safety that's not like a Jamal Adams that's trying to step up and make a big hit on him, because you will be put flat on your back. And so I'm excited about his potential. People are 100% correct. We do have to temper the expectations some, but the whole point of film study is to be able to project traits and skills to the next level. He shows elusiveness. He shows power behind his pads. He shows good run speed, like game time speed, regardless of his 40. He shows enough speed in that regard to be able to be projected to the next level, at the very least as a power back. And so, you know, and most power backs aren't coming in, you know, with 51 career receptions. Most of them have maybe 5. That's Elijah, you know, Holyfield, right? Had like 7 catches, I think, in his whole career. Yeah. And so when you're looking at his ability to produce at multiple points in a game, especially on a third down in a blitz pickup situation, you're seeing him take on Young from Ohio State in blitz pickup. That's a bad man. That's a bad man. So if you're picking him up, you know, that's an NFL caliber player. You know, people are saying he's one of the best edge rushers to come out in the past 10 years. And so when you're seeing him stand guys like that up and really kind of keep him away from the quarterback, I think that stuff projects really well to the NFL.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I definitely wanted to mention. You know, he looked pretty good in pass protection, but I'd like to see what he does on the NFL level. But that's something we were lacking a little. But Miles Sanders, you had also mentioned earlier in the video, you know, that's something Miles Sanders worked on. And you saw him, you know, he's not necessarily leveling people all the time, but there was a couple big hits he had, which is great. But he's not exactly the biggest guy, but he's getting it done. He's learning that job. So that's great to see from your lead back. But you need the guys behind him. If they're coming in to spell, especially in passing situations. You know, you said about Michael Warren also being able to catch the ball. So if you can run, catch, you know, if you're showing your versatility to this team, like, oh, wow, he can be used as our power back. You know, we can also throw them off. You know, maybe we're sneaking the ball. Maybe, you know, we're throwing a short little out. You know, so, I mean, look at that. 51 catches, like you said. That's pretty incredible. And, you know, yeah. Only 3 touchdowns, but I mean, I think he was getting it done with the 34 rushing touchdowns. So, yeah, the kid got it done in college. We're excited to see what he does, though, in the NFL. And like you said, they're all going to be pushing each other. So we don't know. Some of these guys like Clement, you know, could be out of a job. You know, we're talking about them being 3, but they could be 4, or they could be out the road. You know what I mean? Right. So it's pretty I'm excited for the running back battle. But, you know, when people talk about running backs, I'm not against adding a free agent. I've never been. Adding competition is perfectly fine, but we're just talking about how much we like the running backs right now, because, hey, if the season started right now, I'd be excited to see, you know, who ends up the starter. Well, the starter, the 2, the 3, and then, you know, where we go from there. But, you know, if tomorrow we wake up and we signed Freeman or McCoy, I'm not going to lose sleep, because it's not saying they made the team, you know, that's just saying they're getting a chance. So it is what it is.
As long as it's low on the guaranteed money, right? Like, that's the big thing, is that we're not guaranteeing these guys a position. Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head just a moment ago. I'm satisfied with this running back group as it stands. You know, I'm not against taking this into training camp, seeing these young guys battle, seeing how hungry they are. You know, I think that Clement has a really strong chance of sticking on this team because he can play special teams and is a willing tackler on like kickoff. And so stuff like that will keep him on the team. I think there's some questions around if Holyfield and if Warren can do that, or are they more traditional running backs? And so, you know, I think Corey Clement definitely has a place where he can stick on this roster, being more versatile as far as special teams goes. But I'm excited to just see how these younger guys develop. When you have a beast in Miles Sanders, when you have a guy that is still developing at his trade in Boston Scott, and then like 4 guys behind them that are battling for 1 or 2 more spots, all of whom have different, you know, variety of skill sets, but all have proved it either in college or to a certain extent in the pros already. I wouldn't, you know, like you said, I wouldn't lose sleep adding another veteran to this room, as long as we keep that guaranteed money down and we're not just handing them some backup job or, you know, a tertiary job on this team. Like, have them come in and earn it the same way these undrafted free agents are.
Definitely. And the guys that I've, you know, talked about, and we'll bring up a little bit here after we talk about these running backs, you know, there are a couple free agents, but if you're bringing anyone in, it's to get some of these jobs done, you know, to be a pass protector or something like that. We already have, you know, these elusive backs. So people losing their minds over needing Freeman and McCoy. You know, I like the Hyde idea too. You know, he's more of a power back, but Freeman can run hard too, but lots of injuries there. So that's questionable. But, you know, we got a lot here, like you just said, and I'm excited. And then the next guy we're going to talk about, the last guy on our roster, you know, not a power back, but man, is he intriguing, because it's like, how do you let this kid just go to the practice squad and hope that someone doesn't take him from you? Because, oh, my Lord, Adrian Killens, when you watch this kid's tape, he's phenomenal. So I can't wait to hear what you have to say about him, because I love the kid, and I'm really excited to see what he does once the offseason starts.
Killens, for me, I don't want to call him redundant. I don't think that is, for lack of a better word, I'll go with redundant. He kind of is very similar to what we have in Boston Scott. He's kind of similar to what we have, excuse me, in Corey Clement. But the redundancy is a good thing, because he can both run and catch. And so when you're looking at how he was used at UCF, he was sort of a bit player. He was never just the guy. He was never just the person that was like the 1A on that team. He was more of a 1B too, but he was able to produce. And what you can't coach, when we talked about with Davion Taylor, and we talk about with Jalen Reagor and some of, you know, the other draft picks that we have, you can't teach speed. And Killens has speed. He has the elusiveness. He has the ability to get out into the open field and make a lot of plays. Something that I commented on before with him, though, is I wanted to see how he performed after contact. Right, like it's great if you can run real fast, but then when people hit you and you go down immediately, there's not as much value for that in the NFL as there is in college or high school. And so he was able to get behind his pads, keep his levels low, you know, keep his feet moving. He wasn't ever, from what I saw, running people over necessarily, but he wasn't also going down in the first hit. You know, if you arm tackled this kid in space, he was going to run through it, and he was going to keep it moving at least for a couple more yards, if not stay on his feet completely and take it to the house. And so, you know, he has an element of experience that like a Holyfield doesn't have, because again, he's somebody that is underrated, and I don't think that he'll struggle to find the role, I think, early on, because we have Clement and because we have Scott as of right now. But to your point, if you put him on the practice squad, I don't know how long he lasts, because there are so many teams in the NFL that don't have the same number of elusive backs as we do in our stable. And so he may get snatched up pretty quickly. It could be a trade-off game. You know, I think that there are some other really elusive and talented backs that are going to end up on practice squads around the NFL, just because there's just not enough space for all of these guys. But, you know, if Killens can go ahead and just get a little bit stronger, getting into an NFL weight room and really pack on a little bit more weight, not to lose speed, but to gain that ability to run through contact, he can have a good career in the NFL. You know, I think that, again, you see a lot of those traits that you want to project to the NFL from college, but that speed, man, you can't argue against it. His receiving ability, you can't argue against it. He can contribute a little bit in the return game. And so anyone that can do multiple things for your offense or for your team is always going to have more value than somebody that may only be a pounder, right? May only be a short yardage guy. So if I have to choose a short yardage guy versus a guy that can give me reps as a return man, could potentially play kickoff, right, and go down the field and make some tackles and just get his body in the way, can catch. You know, if something were to happen to a Corey Clement, could step into that role as that third running back or that fourth running back and contribute in the NFL. It makes you excited. You know, I think that the Eagles, again, are in a really strong place. Losing on some of these running backs won't be the worst thing, because they're also going to cost a lot more than these kids do. But yeah, Killens, man, Killens was killing it at UCF. And so, you know, we'll see what he can do in the NFL. He definitely has to get bigger and stronger, but he already has the speed. And so if he could get those other two attributes together and really, again, get into that NFL weight room and just get bigger, he could be a contributor for sure. Maybe not immediately, but down the road, definitely.
Yeah, and like you said, you know, he's 5'8", 165 pounds. Definitely bulk up a little, but you know, he's a young guy. It's something you expect from some of these little guys. That's how they excelled at what they did. Yeah. But now, stepping up with the big boys, and I think he understands that. So we'll see what he's been doing during this quarantine. We'll see how much work these kids have been putting in, and we'll hope that, you know, he comes out and surprises us, because I'm sure people were saying, you know, oh, Darren Sproles can't do it. You know, we're smart enough to know that size does not mean anything. You know, I was lucky enough to have Mark McMillan on the other day, and I actually wanted to get to the point to talk Adrian Killens with him, but we ran out of time. But, you know, that underdog mentality, that's something, you know, he talked about when he had it. You know, he was 5'7", so it's like, as long as they come out and play with that toughness, you talked about it, he showed that toughness. Now show us that you want to, you know, extend that, and you want to extend your career into the NFL. So I'm excited, really excited, because like you said, he's a gadget player. Sure, he's listed as running back, whatever, but you can use him all over the field, and he can be used as a returner, which is great. We've got all kinds of guys, and you see that. You also mentioned that in our past videos, we talked about that raw speed, that talent that you can't teach. So that you notice that's the theme with a bunch of these guys that we brought in. So you're going to see a battle, man, a war for these positions, and I'm excited. So that's why I wanted to have you come on, because I've been seeing all that talk, and I don't blame it, because there's nothing really else to talk about. But when it comes down to it, I'm a fan of what we have, and I know you are too. So that's why I wanted to bring you in, because it's like, look at that, man. Like, just going into the battle, you're like, oh man, there's a couple guys right there at the bottom that are going to be fighting for the power back spot. But I mean, other than that, it's like, ooh, healthy. These guys could tear it up. And we talked about the receivers, all the talent we have around us, and it's going to make it easier for these guys, open things up for them. I mean, nothing's easy in the NFL, but you know what I mean.
Right.
Definitely gets easier. But there are some free agents, and we talked about the video about we're not against adding competition, for the right price. And there's definitely a couple guys out there, but nothing to write mom home about. But there's definitely a couple. One of the names I left off was Marshawn Lynch, that was brought up. I think if he comes back, it'll be with the Raiders. So I'm not really including him, but there's a couple guys there. I know Freeman and McCoy are intriguing, but I mentioned Buck Allen with his pass protection, running hard. Some of that might fit the bill, but I just figured, before we end the video, you give some of your thoughts on some of these free agent running backs, and maybe what your thought is after Carlos Hyde signing with the Seahawks. Who do you think is the next best available option for the Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at the news that is being spread around right now, it's kind of a two-horse race between Devontae Freeman and Lesean McCoy. I'm a big Freeman fan. When I played Madden, I still play it, but not as much as I used to. But he was my dude on Madden, Freeman, just because he can do everything. And what does he have? 257 receptions in his career so far, over 2,000 yards and 11 touchdowns. And so when we're going back to talk about that versatility and that ability to contribute in a bunch of different ways, Lesean McCoy can do it as well, but McCoy's kind of getting long in the tooth. He's not the same slippery running back that he once was. There were some good articles being produced, not too long ago about his ability. I think what he had 4.6 yards per carry, but wasn't really able to dig out a consistent role for Kansas City, and then was like a clean scratch throughout the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken. And so I think that says a lot. That's Andy Reid's boy right there. So if Andy Reid is clean scratching this kid, that says a lot about where he is in his career. Lesean McCoy, I will forever be grateful to, because he was an excellent football player for us. I was heartbroken when we flipped him for Kiko Alonso, because that was just a joke kind of trade. That was just something that for me never made sense. And his career was never really the same after leaving Philadelphia. That he was tailor-made for this city and for that system. I appreciate the fact that he wants to come back. I appreciate everything that he's done for us, but I'm kind of beyond that at this point. I think that if I'm going to be a front office person and just kind of step into how we see it for right now, Devontae Freeman kind of has to be the lead horse in this race, because he's somebody that can still come in and contribute. He's not going to necessarily take over. No one's going to overtake Miles Sanders, but he's somebody that brings a lot of versatility into that running back group. When you add him in and you're looking at a 1-2 combo of him and Sanders, I think that gives defenses nightmares. I think Stoutland gets really excited as the run game coordinator, just dreaming up different zone and man blocking schemes, gap blocking schemes that he can implement with those two runners. He seems to have a little bit left in the tank, Freeman that is, versus McCoy, who I'm just not too sure that he's really going to get the job done. And also, when you look at this offensive line, it's definitely a really good offensive line. So that's giving Freeman even more ability to run before contact. So I'm excited about him. Somebody I was looking at earlier today when I knew that, you and I were going to talk about this was Isaiah Crowell. Isaiah Crowell was a really, really highly touted running back coming out of high school. Never really put it all together in college, but it's still somebody that has the skills and ability. Kind of was able to show it a little bit with the Jets, was basically put on ice last year. He didn't carry the rock at all. And so, when I'm thinking about a power back or somebody that could potentially come in and fill that very different role for us, so say Warren and Holyfield showed it like they're just not ready yet. Isaiah Crowell for me is somebody that kind of jumps out as like, okay, he could come in and play that role specifically. It will be half decent on a handful of reps per game. And it's somebody that is just different than the rest of the running backs that we have now in this group. Spencer Ware is another guy who could. He kind of fizzled out with KC as well. And so I'm worried, man, if Andy Reid can't use a running back and get him going in that rotation he has, I don't know where you are in your career, what you're going to be able to contribute to the Eagles, considering that like we have a very sort of similar system. And so, the rest of those guys, CJ Prosise, Theo Riddick, a lot of those guys are receiving backs. A lot of those guys are third down backs. Steven, what's going on, baby? How's everything? And so those aren't guys that I think that we're bringing in. I would much rather move forward with Killins. I would much rather keep Clement and let him run it. I would much rather Boston Scott get a chance than looking at a Theo Riddick or potentially a CJ Prosise. And Prosise is for injuries his entire career. He's shown in spurts that he is an NFL caliber player, but your best ability is your availability. And he's not been available but so often. You mind putting up the list one more time?
Yeah.
You mentioned Buck Allen too. Buck Allen is a guy who definitely, like you always say, Spencer Ware, yeah, Buck Allen is somebody who, like you said, he can get the job done. I like the fact that he can catch. He's definitely a third down blocker. He's somebody that can pick up the blitz. Won't give you but so much as a running back. Bilal Powell, again, is more of a third down guy. Lamar Miller, if we were having this conversation maybe 2 or 3 years ago, I'd have been like, listen, go get Lamar. At this point, I'm like, listen, don't mess with Lamar. You could probably leave him alone. So, yeah, for me, like I said, Devontae Freeman, number 1, Lesean Mccoy, number 2, maybe put Isaiah Crowell as number 3 just because, again, he's a different kind of guy, a different kind of back than what we currently have. And then the rest of this list is kind of like a mixed bag. I would even potentially say, like, don't even test the waters. If you can't get Devontae Freeman, there's also something I'm seeing is that he's talking about holding out until next year if he can't get the contract that he's looking for. And so if he's looking for that guaranteed money, or if he's looking for more than potentially he's worth on the open market right now, I would just say, hey, listen, let's hold out until training camp. Let's see who gets cut. Let's see who's getting moved around on the practice squad. Let's see if we can potentially find some value if we feel as though the guys after potentially Clement, so like those last 3 or 4 dudes, if we don't feel like they can shake out and get the job done, let's see who else is available. But, unfortunately, running backs are no longer a priority in the NFL. They've been devalued. And so, I don't necessarily agree, but like the truth is the truth. And so I wouldn't waste, but again, so much money trying to chase after guys like that.
Yeah. And, you mentioned the best ability is availability. Yeah. One of the things, I agree that I would probably go, I've said it in the past, I'd go Freeman over McCoy, but to play devil's advocate, you said about, McCoy having more left in the tank. I don't know, or Freeman having more left in the tank. Freeman's actually missed like 17 games in the last few years, which is rough. But, they're both up there. But I'm with you on this. I think Freeman would be my choice, but it's when healthy, So who knows? Right. You're pretty much flipping a coin with any of these guys because you also mentioned he was a healthy scratch. And, they say great minds think alike. Literally last night on my video, I was talking about the fact that really scared the living crap out of me because if Andy Reid, your boy, ain't playing in the Super Bowl, at least giving you 2 hands up and you're like, great job, buddy. Nope. Nothing, man.
He didn't touch the rock in the Super Bowl at all, right? Like he didn't touch the ball in the Super Bowl. And so that was to me, I was like, like you're a healthy scratch in the Super Bowl, dude. Like, I don't know, man. That's what
scares me, man. That's what scares me. So it's like if your boy is literally not suiting you up for the, and I understand that, you want to make the right decisions, but if you really feel that some of those guys were the better decision in the Super Bowl, well, then that's very telling. So I'm with you. I think Devontae Freeman, great back. And it's funny, I also had him a couple times in Madden a few years ago. So I always had an affinity for him and in fantasy football. So I've always kept a close eye. I actually traded him last year. I really snaked somebody. He helped me win the championship, trading away before he got hurt.
Smart.
So, Devontae Freeman, I've watched him closely, and I understand his issues. But, when he's healthy, that's the thing, though. One of these guys is going to come in here and not be the featured back, but even not as the featured back, they're still not going to be relied on like they were supposed to on the other teams. McCoy had a great start last season. He was averaging like 5.8 carries, I believe, 5 yards per carry. So it's like, Then all of a sudden, he fumbled that ball. I believe it was that kind of shifted to Damian Williams. That kind of ended it for him. And then healthy scraps we talk about. So it's like maybe give it another chance with just a few carries per game. You see a little bit, but the same goes for both. And I agree with you. If it's not either of those top two, and maybe Buck Allen, maybe like you said, I like Isaiah Crowell. That's somebody else, I've mentioned, but that those are, you know what I mean? Like you said, it's like, I don't really know if I'm wasting my time because the names we just went over throughout this video, they intrigued me enough to say, yeah, I'm good on that, man. I really want to see. And it obviously makes it hard because we can't see anything right now. So we can watch tape, we can say what we've seen, and and that's why I bring you on, because at least when we're looking at something, you're putting things into context. You're like, okay, well, this is this guy's level of competition. You went right off the bat with Michael Warren talking about his level of competition, going against the likes of Ohio State. You got to really look at things like that when you're putting things in, into context for yourself and other people. So that's why I had you on. I appreciate that. And that's
appreciate it, brother.
Really what we're just trying to look at with these running backs, because I'm not saying people aren't giving them love, but it seems like people feel that, oh my God, we got to get out here and get a running back. I think, yeah, sure. Add one. Let's compete, get a few snaps per game, but maybe we're already set at that running back position. And I cannot wait to see the young guys. Can't wait to see the veterans and how they've improved. I'm pumped. I think, Booby's going to go wild. So really appreciate
Let Booby spin, man. Let Booby spin. And to that point, Booby is a guy that we talked about it. You said 20 carries. I said 20 touches. But either way, he's somebody that's in that 20 touch a game range.
Yeah.
And so if we're looking to run the ball 30 to 35 times, I think Boston Scott is in that 6 to 10 touch range. And so we're already looking between 26 to 30 touches a game between just those two running backs. And so I do agree that this is a position that has just been speculated on numerous times by people outside the city. When I look at these 6 players, for me, Killins and Warren have me really excited about their potential as either the 3rd or 4th, or potentially 3rd and 4th. Because again, like I said, I can see Michael Warren knocking Corey Clement out the box. And so, if he comes in and he really shows what he has to do, as far as being a short yardage back, can translate that 3rd down blitz pickup ability to the NFL and is able to get behind his pass, continue to catch the ball well at the next level. The Eagles made the right choice by bringing in Jordan Howard last year. I mean, you look at what it cost them. It didn't cost them very much in regards to draft capital. And then you're also able to pair him with Miles Sanders. So the brunt of lifting the team up was not squarely on Miles Sanders' shoulders. He was able to start off slowly in a combination and kind of work his way throughout the season. When he finally took the mantle over because Howard got hurt, he was able to show exactly what he's capable of. If we didn't have Miles Sanders, it's a different conversation. If we didn't have Boston Scott, to be quite honest, I feel like this is a different conversation. Maybe I'm overestimating what Boston Scott brings to this team, again, with such a small sample size. But what he showed in that small sample size against NFC East, right? And so these are against this good competition. We're going against people that know our offensive scheme inside and out because they play us twice a year, every year for X number of years. And so they know what we're going to line up and do. There's really no trickery happening at that point. It's about talent, it's about will, and it's about winning and executing. And so he was able to execute. I have a lot of faith in that group. I have a lot of faith in the fact that these young guys are hungry. Like so many of our rookies, so many of our second-year players, they're coming back this year, really looking at an opportunity to take on more responsibility. If we didn't have Deuce, I would be worried. If we didn't have a guy like Stoutland coaching the offensive line and being a running game coordinator, I would be worried. If we didn't have Peterson, looking at all of these different wrinkles to add to this offense this year, I'll potentially be worried. If we weren't trying to study San Fran's offense and if we didn't have Morningway back, right? All of these things come together and culminate in a way that I think this running back group will be able to improve drastically without necessarily adding someone else in. Booby is a guy that can potentially have a McCaffrey kind of impact on the game because he can do so many different things, and he's a well-versed running back and receiver. And so I have a lot of faith in this group. I can't wait to see the competition actually take place. How many, I wanted to ask you this before we got off. How many running backs do you think the Eagles carry this year?
Well, that's funny because that's literally what was about to pop up to you on the bottom. Yeah, that's definitely going to be something that's intriguing.
Yeah.
The Eagles usually, it's 4, but sometimes 5.
Right.
So I think this year it's intriguing. We talk about the new CBA. On game day, it's essentially you get 55 players because you're allowed to add 2 players from the practice squad.
Players, right.
Now you get to dress 48 people, but one of those people has to be a lineman. So we talk about how we're going to dance with people. Are we going to, keep someone like Killins on the practice squad or a Holyfield? I don't think so. I think if they really pan out like we hope they will, you'll see Warren as the 3. And then, maybe Clement or whoever at the 4. I'd love to see Killins step it up and maybe earn himself a job, but haven't seen much yet. So haven't seen anything. But I'm really, really excited. So I think we keep 4, unfortunately, for some of these guys. But if Killins comes out and explodes and shows that he could be a weapon, and just look at all the weapons we already have with the speed, and he could very well do so, maybe we keep 5. So it's a great question, but that's the question that I was definitely going to throw at you.
Nice. Like you said, great minds think alike, man.
Exactly. But Traber here says, hopefully we can attend games. Yeah, I really hope so too, man. And I'm just hoping these guys can get to practice and we can watch them damn training camp, because I know Mal is chomping at the bit as well as I, because we just want to be able to evaluate these kids a little bit more, be able to see some stuff. And, I know a lot of times people take this time of year for granted. Who cares about training camp and preseason? And every damn time I'm like, I do, because this is my chance
100%.
to break it down. That's when the kids are hungry, man. That's the time where you get to see who really wants to fight. And you talked about Austin Scott fighting last year when it was divisional time. So those guys were definitely fighting. So, he was coming out. That small sample size, man, I really like what I saw. Could catch the ball. He ran hard. I really thought he was trying to step it up in pass protection. So I can't wait to see what we get from him with some game time under his belt. And hopefully they get some damn practice. So Traber couldn't agree more, man, but I just want them to get back first, and then we'll worry about us later. I don't care if I have to stand outside the stadium from Wells Fargo and scream until they hear me. They will hear me. But but let's get back to the question that I was definitely going to ask you. How many do you think we keep?
Saying 4. I think there's a chance 5. Killins, again, and this is no hate on Holyfield. Holyfield, come out and prove me wrong. But us acquiring Warren was kind of like, Holyfield, I don't know, my brother. I hope the best for you. I never wish against anybody. And like you were saying before about like just the heart and just the fight and determination, that's one thing you can never, like, you can see it on tape to a certain extent, but you don't know. And I challenge anyone that says like, hey, man, I love OTAs. Like, I love any time and any opportunity where I'm seeing guys practice well together and get better, because I know that like that's the core fundamentals of like who ends up winning the championship, right? Like the New England Patriots, and we hate them as much as we do. I can't stand the Patriots. I even hate saying the word, but they're good year in and year out because each and every opportunity that they get to drill these reps and practice with one another and go through these different situational simulations, they take full advantage of it. They cheat too. And I'm sure the cheating helps. We don't cheat, but we still beat them. And that's all that matters. Right. But, training camp for me and just being able to see these guys go head up and really just hunt for these jobs, there's nothing better. I think about these 2-a-day practices when I used to play high school ball. And that's when you really got to see who was a dog and who was a cat. Right. That's when you got a chance to see who was hungry and who was just thinking that because they were a junior or a senior that their spot was guaranteed. And I saw sophomores and freshmen starting on varsity because the upperclassmen just wasn't hungry enough. Hey, hungry dogs run faster, man. And so, there's a situation where I really do think 4 running backs stick. Like you said, if I think Killins is the guy that can stick as the 5th. I do think Corey Clement stays. Yeah, he's a wild card for sure. I think Corey Clement stays as long as we don't sign another veteran back. If we do sign a veteran back like a Devontae Freeman, I think that ultimately Clement is a guy that gets his walking papers just because he's just a glue guy. He's a guy that like isn't going to necessarily take the roof off. Killins' upside if he sticks on this team as a versatile, kind of contributor. I love it. Again, I can't stop singing Michael Warren's praises. He's somebody that I think that is just, he's going to be somebody that I can't wait to see develop in this offense and really get a chance to be coached up by Staley. Boston Scott, again, small sample size, but dude has big heart and can do it a lot of different ways. We're going to let Booby spin for 250, 300 touches total. if that kid hits 300 touches, my goodness, you know, the NFC East, we're going to dominate the East. We're going to dominate everything. And I hope that, you know, the Eagles do make a transition towards decreasing the Herculean efforts of Carson Wentz and putting more of this on our group, on our running back group. Because if we could go out there running 35, 40 times, man, between 4 different backs, who's stopping us? You know, that keeps our defense healthy. That keeps our defense rested. That gives our offensive line a chance to really do what they do best, which I believe is just dominate going forward. You know, we have some really strong pass blockers, but when you're looking at somebody like Brandon Brooks is an eater, man. Like, that man's trying to put his hands on somebody and just move them all around, you know? And so I get excited, watching stuff like that. I get excited just thinking about this positional group battling it out and you know, the peak heat, summertime. And like you said, if I got to get a bullhorn, man, and stand outside Wells Fargo, if I got to, you know, whatever it takes, we might all pull our money together and get a jet to fly over the top. Just whatever we got to do to make sure that people understand that this city is really about it, you know, and we are the best fans to me in the country, right here in Philadelphia. And so the excitement that we have for this team and for this game should not be underestimated. And the heart of the players on this team shouldn't be underestimated either. In regards to being able to attend games, like you said, first things first, the players have to get back. But I think seeing Andrew Cuomo, he tweeted that they're going to allow training camp to happen as long as people are doing social distancing correctly.
Yeah.
If New York is opening it up, I think PA won't be too far behind. And so as long as we have that green light to get in there, well, not us, but as long as the players have the green light to get in there and practice, and as long as they take it serious,
they get tested.
Do what they need to. Yeah, man, do what you got to do.
Good save, get this season going. We'll get it back.
We're going to get it back. And as long as we do what we need to, so that we can get into the stadiums. But I've been seeing like these the kind of like prototypes of what season could potentially look like. And
I'm saying, like, thoughts.
The Cowboy Stadium might only be able to hold like 30,000 people. And so that, I feel like, is a detriment to them. We can have 6 Eagles fans at the link and it's going crazy. You can have 20 people in the link and we're going bananas. I think that, you know, when you're looking at some of these stadiums that really need to be filled to the brim to really bring it. And I question Cowboy fans, man. They go in there to see the cheerleaders on the pole and the giant TV. They're not really watching ball like that. And so, you know, we in the link going crazy because we in there to watch ball and go and just turn up, right? We the same fans from the Vet, you know what I mean? And we was going crazy in the Vet, and that was a terrible stadium. It had great memories, but it was not the best damn stadium.
My God.
So, you know, thank God we don't have to social distance in the Vet, huh?
My ass is still cold from the seats.
Oh, yeah. Come on, man. The Vet. Come on, man. And so at least we get the social distance in the link. But I do think we get back. I think that, you know, we get some semblance of normalcy again through football. I'm really excited about the opportunity to continue to break down videos like this and just chat with you until we get something more tangible to like look at. But there are so many things to talk about, so many positional groups, so many battles that are going to happen in training camp. I challenge everybody to just be patient and, you know, just do their part in this to make sure that like we can get back to the point where football is active and alive in the fall.
Please, God, please. We need it. So,
Absolutely.
Every time I keep seeing like, oh, they're talking about, and it's like, all right, well, I'm listening. So if basketball, baseball, hockey are all being talked about, football will be close behind, just like you talked about New York, and then Pennsylvania will be close. So once everybody gets together, I'm sure we're getting there. So everybody does this smart, we'll figure it out. But, you know, like you said, we don't have much news, but we can break down these positional battles. We can do things like that. So I'm going to have one guest. You're definitely welcome to come back on. We'll break down another position. Absolutely. But, you know, we're coming up on an hour here. But I'll let you, if you have any last thoughts on this running back room or anything you want to say, I'll let you have that time now.
Yeah, I mean, again, Miles Sanders is going to go crazy. Boston Scott is going to be that secondary guy going crazy. Third will be a very interesting positional battle. I think as of right now, Corey Clement has the leg up just because of experience and understanding of the actual like system itself. But Michael Warren is going to be, for me, the guy to watch. And then, like you said, Killens is sort of that wild card. But if Michael Warren can, again, take his skills that he had at Cincinnati that you can project to the NFL, projections are one thing, actually doing it is another. And we'll see how quickly he's able to put it together at the next level. But in the end of the day, man, it's really going to be on Deuce Staley to coach these guys up and allow them to be able to get into a position where they can be successful. But Miles Sanders is going to be a beast. I think he ends up, in regards to total yardage in the top 5 or 6 running backs in the NFL. And so as long as we have that commitment to the running game, it just allows Carson Wentz to be a different quarterback. Also, to kind of step away from the running game a little bit, but it allows him to take less hits. This kid's getting beaten up. He's getting demolished. And we're talking about the injuries, but we're not talking about the pass rushes and the hurries and the knockdowns. Those things accumulate over time, right? And so when you see a guy that's had struggles with back injuries, with knee injuries, with concussions, just rib injuries, wrist injury, right? Like the injury list is getting up there. And whether or not he's injury prone, I think that's a different, complete conversation. But whenever you can decrease the number of times he's getting knocked down and hit in a game because you're able to push forward with the running game, you can't go wrong with it. And so Eagles, let's put it all together. Let's leverage 3 to 4 running backs every single week. Let's get it on the ground 35 to 40 times. Let's use that play action really well to open up the vertical routes for Deshaun Jackson and for Hightower and for Rager. And this offense in 2020 could look drastically different than I think we've ever seen it before.
And I agree. That's something I've been stressing last few weeks. I honestly feel this could be not only, a top 3 offense, but possibly the best offense in the league and one of the best we've ever seen. We've broke down all the weapons we've added, and with those additions and with, that line, if they come back healthy, the tight ends, if they come back, you're just adding to that. So these running backs are going to feast. So whether or not we make a move for a free agent, we see what we have here, and it's a very, very exciting battle. You talk about Warren and how we're very excited. Maybe he pushes Clement out because he can do all the things he does, and he's that power back. He catches the ball, he does all those things. So, like you said, if that adjusts to the NFL, oh my Lord, cannot wait to see what he does. And then you talk about the wild card. Man, Adrian Killins is phenomenal. So he's a speedster. Maybe he pushes the Eagles to think about keeping a 5th running back. Don't know. We both agree it's probably 4, but hey, we don't know what we're going to see. We're just excited at the thought that we'll get to see it soon.
Absolutely.
You're coming on tonight, man. And,
man, appreciate you, brother.
About, the next position that we're going to break down that I'll have you on for. But thank you so much. And thank you to everyone for tuning in with your questions, comments, all that good stuff. And look forward to talking to you guys again soon. But until then, go!